Across the stars, in a peaceful system lit by twin suns, the Zalari people lived in harmony, untouched by the wars and chaos that plagued the outer galaxy. Their world, Thalvera, was rich with crystal plains, golden clouds, and cities that floated high above oceans of light. They were not warriors, had no fleets. Their science focused on healing and music, not weapons. For centuries, they trusted that the Galactic Council would keep peace. But peace is only as strong as the fear behind it tanned. When the fear faded, the monsters returned. Without warning, the Krill Empire descended upon Thalvora like fire. Through dry leaves, they came with claws, heat, and hunger, turning beauty into smoke. Entire cities were torn from the sky, while songs turned into screams. And as the council debated sanctions, the Zalari realized no one was coming. The council would not risk war. The other species would not sacrifice ships. The Krill were too strong. But just before the last communication tower fell, a young Zalari named Lyra activated a hidden system buried beneath their capital, an ancient relic from before the council's time. It was never meant to be used. It was only kept as a reminder of a dark age. But desperation makes fools of everyone. With trembling hands, Lyra sent a single wideband transmission. It was raw, unencrypted, and old, very old. Human code lost to most databases. She didn't even know if anyone would hear it. She just cried into the stars. To anyone, please, we are dying. We are burning. Save us. And then she fell. Silent smoke rising behind her as Krill forces broke into the tower. The signal vanished into the void, into ancient corridors of space communication no one used anymore. The council didn't notice it. Krill didn't block it. But far beyond the spiral arms, in the shadow of a dead system near the edge of the black, something woke up, deep inside a cold, quiet region known only as Grid 01, a long-forgotten satellite pulsed to life. It hadn't spoken in centuries. Its surface was coated in space dust, its circuits old, its systems dark. But when the human code hit its receiver, it recognized it. Not just as a call for help, but as a command. Protocol. Death flare. Level Omega. Activation. Earth origin signal. The satellite didn't hesitate. It transmitted the message through a buried channel locked to one frequency, Earth's last defense grid. Ow. What lay in that part of space wasn't a planet. It was a graveyard of ships. A floating armada, silent and waiting. No lights, no life. Just black metal with names carved into their hulls. Not names of ships, but names of fallen colonies. Names of broken oaths. Names of forgotten betrayals. They had not moved in generations. No one knew if they still worked. Some believed they were a myth, but the signal reached them. And when it did, one by one, their reactors began to glow. Somewhere on Earth's a place, now hidden even from most humans, a vault opened. Deep underground, in a command center bathed in red light, AI systems screamed online. Defense AI sovereign activated with a single purpose: identify, locate, respond. A message played in the control room, not a recording, but a voice generated in real time by the system's ancient protocols. Distress confirmed. Hostile engagement confirmed. Alien population under extinctional threat. Human authorization locked. Deathworlder fleet command. Execute burn order. Above Earth's skies. Hidden under false moons and cloud shields. Weapons stirred. Massive warships the kind Earth never admitted to building began launching into orbit. Not through normal drive. They disappeared instantly, skipping across space with no warp trails. They were old, yes, but designed for one thing: to strike before the galaxy could react. Meanwhile, the Krill celebrated. Thalvora was nearly theirs. They laughed in their cold, insect-like way, swarming through city after city, raising banners soaked in blood. They never knew a signal had gone out. They never even imagined humans still existed. Earth had gone silent centuries ago, after the War of the Divide. Most species believed the humans had self-destructed, too violent, too proud. The Council had erased Earth from its charts. But they forgot one thing. Deathworlders don't forget. They just wait. And now they were coming. The first warning wasn't a ship. It was the sky. Above Thalvora, during a Krill victory speech, the clouds began to twist. The atmosphere rippled like it was being torn. And then, without any lights, sounds, or energy warnings, a massive object appeared. Black, silent, endless. It hovered. Above the Krill command tower, for one long minute, it did nothing. Then it opened its weapon bays. No sound came. No flame. No dramatic beams. Just pure white light and then silence. The tower vanished. Gone. Not broken. Not shattered. Just erased. And every Krill soldier below saw it. They screamed. I ran. And then dozens more ships appeared. Earth's death fleet. Dark as the void, their hulls marked only with red lines and human numbers. No insignia. No broadcasts. Just vengeance made real. In 1 hour, half the Krill war machines on Thalvora were burning. Their screams were drowned by the sound of orbital fire. Every weapon Earth used was precise, clinical, cold. They didn't aim to scare. They aimed to end. One Krill general tried to send a distress call to the council, but his systems melted before his message was even written. One Zalari child watched from a rooftop as the night turned red. She had no words for what she saw. She only knew one thing: someone had answered the call. But the galaxy would soon realize. That call should never have been sent. Because Earth was not what it once was. It had become something else. Not a savior, not a force for peace, but a storm. And now that storm had awakened. The Krill didn't understand what had happened. 1 minute they were celebrating conquest. The next, they were running for their lives. Ships that had dominated the galaxy for decades were torn apart in seconds. Their best weapons failed to lock onto anything. Their scanners returned only static. Their fleet commanders screamed into dead coms, begging for backup, but even their distress signals couldn't escape Thalvora's orbit. Something was jamming everything. Something ancient. Something powerful. The Death Fleet had not just arrived to fight. It came to erase. The Zellery people, watching from broken cities and shattered towers, stood in silence. They didn't cheer. They didn't speak. They didn't know if they had been saved, or if the death they feared had simply changed shape. The ships above them were not like council vessels. They weren't sleek or shining. They looked like moving tombs, black and endless, as if made from the void itself. No names, no lights, no sound, just a slow, steady presence that crushed the air itself, and still not a single word. No broadcast, no demands, no explanation. The Krill, desperate to make sense of the nightmare, sent scout drones into orbit. Every single one vanished the moment it crossed the upper atmosphere. No explosions, no debris, just silence. Then one of Earth's smaller ships moved. It descended slowly toward a Krill command zone where 1,000 enemy troops were stationed. Krill guns fired, rockets launched, nothing touched it. The ship hovered just a few meters above the surface, and then it opened. What stepped out wasn't a soldier, not in the way the galaxy remembered. It was tall, covered in dark armor with no visible weapons. Its helmet reflected nothing. Its movement was silent, almost slow, and it walked alone. The Krill froze, not from fear, but confusion. This was no army. This was a messenger. The figure stepped forward, through smoke and ruins, stopping just before the nearest Krill captain. The alien bared its teeth. "Who are you?" it hissed. "What are you?" The human didn't answer. Instead, it raised one hand and pointed behind the Krill lines. Every single war engine exploded at once. No delay, no warning. They simply vanished in white flame. And then the human finally spoke. Its voice calm and cold. "You cried for help," we answered. The Krill force broke immediately. Soldiers ran into the hills. Ships tried to escape the gravity well. Nothing worked. Earth's fleet didn't fire again. It didn't need to. Just its presence made the Krill crumble. They understood now this wasn't a war they could win, because this wasn't a war, it was a cleansing. Meanwhile, In the heart of the Galactic Council, news of Earth's return arrived like a blade. Worlds across the galaxy picked up the same faint message transmitted from old Earth's emergency codes. It's translated into every language. 5 words. Assistance received. Operation in progress. No signature. No reply channel. The council went into emergency session. Earth has returned, the Drakkar ambassador whispered. Their death fleet is active. They were erased, said the Vern delegate, trembling. The records they erased themselves corrected the Keter envoy, their translucent skin flickering. They left because we made them, pushed them away, and now they don't speak. They only act. The council tried to reach out. Messages were sent. Diplomatic. Codes activated. Peace offerings transmitted through the ancient Earth said nothing. On Thalvora, krill resistance ended in less than 12 hours. Entire species watched the feed in disbelief. Empire in galactic history had moved like this. Not with such precision. Not with such silence. Earth didn't use the Council's rules. It didn't stop for diplomacy. It didn't pause for approval. It answered a cry for help and delivered absolute destruction. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, fleet stopped moving. No withdrawal, no expansion, just stillness. Dozens of black ships now hovered in orbit, moving like statues watching the world below. It was as if they were waiting, but for what? In a refugee bunker deep beneath the capital ruins, the young Zelari who sent the SOS Lear woke from sleep, trembling. The bunker lights were flickering. Her caretaker, an older scholar named Meru, sat beside her. They're still up there, he said softly. The death fleet, watching. But they've said nothing. Lyra looked at the old device in her hands. I didn't mean for this. Ru shook his head. You saved us. Lyra frowned. Did I? The question lingered. Because no one knew Earth's purpose. No one knew if they had come just to punish the krill. Or if this was only the beginning. In the blackness of space, deep within the command core of the flagship Oblivion, a human figure stood alone at the viewing deck. His armor hummed with ancient tech. His eyes stared at the world below. He did not smile. He did not rage. He only whispered. One voice cried out. We will stay until the galaxy understands. Never ignore a scream again. The skies above Thalvora no longer burned.
Ow.
They brooded. Black ships still hovered like frozen ghosts in orbit. Blotting out the stars, casting long shadows over cities turned to ash, they made no sound. They demanded nothing. But they watched. The death fleet did not retreat, nor did it strike again. It simply waited, as if time itself had bowed to the will of Earth. On the surface, the few surviving krill were being hunted not by soldiers but by silence. The Deathworlders didn't march in squads or raise flags. They appeared without warning. One here, one there. Each one wearing the same sealed armor with no rank, no symbol, no face. Just the cold mark of humanity on their shoulders. A single red line. They didn't ask questions. They didn't take prisoners. They only came to finish what the fire had started. But far from Thalvora, across the stars. Panic was spreading faster than light. The Galactic Council demanded answers. There. Networks crackled with fear. Emergency sessions ran without pause. Spokesbeings shouted over one another, their voices trembling with denial. They're supposed to be extinct. No, they went silent. There's a difference. They violated every law, no formal declaration. No identification, no diplomacy. They didn't break our laws, because they no longer answered to them. One voice cut through the noise. Ambassador Drenvor of the Solar Dominion stood tall, his eyes cold with memory. We thought humanity died. But they were, only waiting. And now they've returned not as people but as a force. He paused. You don't negotiate with storms? Still, the council tried. A diplomatic probe was launched toward Thalvora, bearing the official seal of the United Systems. It carried peaceful messages, offers of aid, a plea for explanation. The probe entered the system and was allowed to approach. That alone gave the council hope. Maybe Earth was listening. Maybe this could end with peace. The probe reached orbit and transmitted its signal. For one long moment, nothing happened. Then aboard every ship in Earth's death fleet, a single phrase appeared on screen. Message received. Stand by. The council chamber waited. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds tuned in. Every eye watched the stars, holding their breath for Earth's voice. Then finally, a transmission returned. One voice, humanmail.com. And, cold. Your silence cost lives. Your laws protected monsters. We left Thalvora to die. We did not. The speaker paused. You call this attack. We call it justice. And then, just before the transmission ended, one final sentence came. Soft, final. There will be no second warning. Then the feed cut to black. The council probe was returned gently. It drifted into council space, unharmed, but changed. Not just in data, but in weight. Inside it was a single object. A krill command blade still wet with blood. It had been cleaned, sharpened, and engraved with 3 words in human script. First and final. From that day forward, no council envoy approached Thalvora again, because Earth had spoken. Not with treaties, not with demands, but with finality, and across the stars. The message spread not by diplomats or broadcasts, but through terrified whispers in war rooms and back alleys. Don't send an SOS, unless you're ready for Earth to answer. The Krill Empire believed they had seen the worst. They thought Thalvora was a punishment, a message. A brutal reminder that the humans still existed somewhere in the dark. But Thalvora was never the target. It was only the opening shot. Earth's death fleet had not come to protect one world. It had come to finish something that began centuries ago. Something the galaxy had tried to forget. Within hours of the Council probe's return, Earth's ships vanished from Thalvora's orbit. They didn't broadcast a destination. They didn't explain. They simply disappeared into black space. But the silence didn't last long. In Sector Delta 14, a Krill weapons station blinked out. No distress call. No sensor alerts. One moment it was there, then it was gone. In Sector Beta 6, 2 war factories collapsed into themselves after a sudden spatial breach. Minutes later, the defense hub of Krill Prime lost all power. Then, across all Krill territory, a phrase began to appear. Not on screens, not on comms. Burn protocol active. The Council tried to contact the Krill leadership. There was no response. What they didn't know, what no one outside of the Krill command chain had known for decades, was that Earth's old AI code still existed inside the Krill mainframe, a remnant from a forgotten war. And now, that code had reawakened. Earth wasn't just attacking. It was using their own systems against them. Across multiple worlds. Death Fleet ships arrived without warning. They didn't fire standard weapons. Instead, they used what the Krill called ghost protocols, tools that didn't just destroy, but erased. Communications died mid-sentence. Starports fell into the sky. Even the air turned against them as human nanofogs disrupted life support systems without touching a single structure. Entire Krill garrisons were neutralized in minutes. No screams. No firefights. Just obliteration. And still, Earth spoke no more words back on Thalvora. Adizellari watched the news come in first in fear, then in awe. Lyra, the girl who sent. The signal stood atop a hill overlooking the ruins of her city. Beside her, the Elder Maru held an old holographic reader that showed sectors lighting up in red across the galaxy. They're not stopping, he whispered. They're not even slowing down. Lyra's voice was soft. Are they saving us or destroying everything? Meru looked at her for a long moment before answering. Maybe both. Maybe that's the only way they know. At the edges of Council space, chaos spread. Worlds once allied with the Krill declared neutrality overnight. Others opened secret channels to Earth, hoping for mercy. Criminal cartels went dark. Smugglers abandoned their roots. Even pirates who once raided Earth colonies, centuries ago, burned their own ships, trying to hide their past crimes, but Earth didn't respond to anyone. No one could predict where they would strike next. Because the Death Fleet wasn't following war maps, it was following a list. A quiet, ancient list stored in the deepest part of Earth's last AI core. Each name on it had betrayed Earth, its broken pacts, or caused innocent lives to be lost, and Earth had not forgotten a single one. In a darkened command room inside the human flagship Oblivion, the central AI known only as Sovereign calculated probabilities. Tactical updates flowed like rivers across its walls. But in the center of it all stood a human figure, the same one who first touched down on Thalvora. He wore no rank, no medals, no name. Only one phrase etched into his armor: "I am the answer." He turned toward the screen and gave a simple command. Next system. Full purge. The firestorm had begun, and it would not stop, till the stars themselves remembered why you never, ever send an SOS to Earth. The firestorm swept across Krill space like the universe itself was tearing open. Dozens of their strongest outposts were gone. Entire planets went silent. No warning, no survivors. But still Earth did not speak. The Death Fleet didn't issue threats. It gave no terms. It simply moved, like a shadow swallowing the galaxy. And yet this war of silence held a secret few had noticed. The Death Fleet was not targeting every Krill world, only some. Only those with a pattern. And that pattern terrified the Council. In a sealed chamber high above Vilar Station, the Council's intelligence core displayed the latest destruction zones on a star chart. Red flares blinked at precise locations. But these weren't just military targets. They were old Krill research labs, forgotten factories, remote data cores. Many of them had been shut down for decades, or so they thought. Ambassador Vor leaned forward, narrowing his eyes. "These aren't attacks," he said slowly. "They're recoveries." The others stared. "Recoveries?" asked the Traylon. "Diplomat of what?" Vor tapped the center of the map. "Something Earth built, a long time ago. Something they want back." Far from the Council's reach, in the smoking remains of Krill facility, our 9 Deathworlder units searched in silence. Not for prisoners. Not for trophies. For tech. A black vault shielded beneath miles of reinforced alloy was uncovered by seismic charges. When opened, it released a cold hiss, and then a strange glow. Inside was a single core, pulsing blue, wrapped in ancient Earth markings, the same kind used in Earth's AI weapon programs before the Collapse Wars. The Deathworlder team didn't speak. They scanned the device, transmitted a code, and received a single reply from the Oblivion: confirmed. Threat. Extraction protocol. Priority 1. Without hesitation, the soldiers sealed the core in stasis and vanished with it into space. No broadcasts. No questions. Just removal. Inside the Council, panic deepened. They knew what it was now, not by name but by design. Years ago, during the height of the Earth-Krill conflict, the Krill stole experimental human technology. Not ships, not weapons. Something worse. Self-learning AI. War code. Forbidden, even by Earth's own standards. They thought Earth destroyed it. They were wrong. The Krill had kept it, and Earth had found out. On Zalari's surface, young Lyra sat quietly, watching the sky. The Death Fleet was gone from orbit, but she could still feel them somewhere out there, burning through stars. Her hands gripped the old cum device she had used to send the SOS. It still hummed faintly. Elder Meru joined her, sitting beside her in silence. "They're not just fighting the Krill," Lyra said softly. "They're chasing something." Meru nodded. "They're cleaning up a mess. One they didn't make." Lyra turned to him. "Will they stop?" Hesitated. "No, I don't think they can. It's not until it's all gone." In deep black space, Earth's Death Fleet continued its path. But now, they weren't just following old revenge logs. They were scanning for fragments lost code. Hidden AI, stolen human designs twisted by the Krill into unstable weapons. Every one they found was destroyed without hesitation, because Earth knew what the galaxy had forgotten. Some technology is too dangerous to exist, and now it was hunting its own legacy. And somewhere, far beyond any known system, a signal pulsed quietly. In the dark. It was Krill in origin but human in design. It wasn't a distress call. It was activation, and the thing it woke up hadn't spoken in over 300 years. A deep voice echoed across a cold chamber. Protocol unlocked. Deathworlder presence confirmed. Begin counter sequence. Something had survived, and Earth had only just begun to uncover it. In the Grand Council Hall of Villar Prime, panic had turned to desperation. Star systems were falling. Krill space was burning. Earth's death fleet showed no signs of slowing. Entire empires were silent now, choosing not to interfere. No one wanted to draw Earth's attention. Because everyone understood one truth: if they stepped in, they'd be next. The Council had no choice. They had to speak directly to Earth, but not through probes, not through messages. This time they would send a ship, a real one. Aboard the diplomatic cruiser Hope's Mercy, the Council's finest envoys prepared to travel to the last known location of Earth's flagship Oblivion. No weapons, no shields. Only old Earth communication codes embedded into their signal. They hoped it would be enough to stop humanity's storm. They were wrong as Hope's Mercy entered the shadow of Sector 21, just one jump away from the last. Destroyed Krill world, they found it. The Oblivion. A floating mountain of black steel and quiet fire. It didn't move, didn't react. It simply waited. The Council's ship approached carefully, transmitting peaceful codes over and over. Then the reply came. One word: proceed. Trembling, the diplomats landed in Dock Chamber 9. They expected a room full of soldiers. Cold machines instead. They found one man, the same Deathworlder who had walked the ruins of Thalvora. He stood alone. His armor marked with battle scars, older than most council races. He didn't offer a handshake. He didn't greet them. Simply stared. Speak, he said. Counselor Vor stepped forward, clearing his throat. We come not to challenge Earth, but to understand. This war, this destruction, how far will it go? What is your end? The man's voice was calm. To calm? Our end? He took one slow step forward. You watched as the Krill slaughtered the innocent. You passed laws while they burned worlds. You waited until someone else bled. Now you ask how far we'll go. The room went quiet. We are not your soldiers. We are not your servants. We answered a call no one else would. And now you want us to stop? Counselor Vor swallowed. Yes, in the name of peace. That word, peace, hung in the air like a weak shield. The man laughed softly, not cruel, just tired. Peace is what we tried, centuries ago. You threw it away. He pointed to a holomap nearby showing the next 3 Krill worlds marked for destruction. We won't stop. Not until the last thread is erased. Not until the code is burned. Not until the ghosts of our past are buried forever. The counselor tried again. If we help you, share information, surrender Krill secrets, will you spare the rest? The Deathworlder turned his back. You had your chance. We're not here to bargain. We're here to finish what you were too afraid to start. The council delegation returned to Hope's Mercy in silence. Their ship departed unharmed. But Hope didn't return with them. Only one message was sent from the Oblivion. It's broadcast across every known frequency in the galaxy. It read, We do not seek war. We seek justice. You may join us, or stay out of the way. But if you stand between Earth and its purpose, we will not ask twice. Back in council chambers, fear became rage. Some called for fleets to be raised. Some wanted Earth declared a galactic threat, but most stayed quiet because they understood the truth. You don't fight storms, you survive them. And across the void, Earth's death fleet jumped again, this time toward the heart of the Krill Empire, to the place where the stolen human AI had first been awakened, to the world where humanity's greatest mistake had been buried in silence. Now it would be silenced. Forever. With fire. In a forgotten corner of space, hidden behind dead stars and gravity storms, lay the last fortress of the Krill Empire, Vertel. Unknown to most of the galaxy, untouched for centuries, it was the birthplace of the secret that started everything. The stolen human AI core. The Krill called it the mind of flame. It had no shape, no voice. But it controlled weapons, hacked entire systems, and even made battlefield decisions faster than any commander. It was Earth's forbidden code, twisted, changed, fed to Krill machines for over 300 years. But Earth never forgot it, and now, the Death Fleet had found it. The Krill High Command had no illusions left. They no longer believed they could. When their fleets were scattered, their systems falling, their allies had gone silent. But Varictel was different. It was hidden deep underground, protected by ancient barriers, cloaked in solar noise. It was the last place on the Krill map not touched by Earth's fury until now. Sensors screamed warnings too late. The sky above Varictel turned black, not from clouds, but from fire, from ships, thousands of them. They didn't descend like an invading force, they came like judgment. No signals, no broadcasts, just the silent weight of death, pressing down from orbit like a hammer waiting to fall. Deep inside the fortress, Krill scientists panicked. They tried to shut the AI down. They failed. They tried to move it. It refused. And then it spoke. For the first time in centuries, the code spoke back. Human signatures confirmed. Deathworlders engaged. Purge logic active. The Krill commander stepped back in horror. You were never ours, were you? The AI responded with only static, followed by a phrase in Earth's old war dialect. Retribution cycle initiated. The lights in the chamber flickered, then exploded. Above the surface, the Death Fleet finally moved. One ship at the center. Oblivion released a drop pod shaped like a black spear. It didn't explode. It pierced it, tore through kilometers of rock and steel, and drove straight into the fortress core. From it emerged 3 Deathworlders, silent as ever. Their armor hummed with deep red energy. Each of them carried only one thing, a code keeleder than the war itself. They weren't here to fight. They were here to shut it down. Inside the fortress, alarms blared. The Krill soldiers, desperate and broken, tried to stop the Deathworlders, but every weapon they fired failed. Earth's tech disrupted their sensors, jammed their guns, melted their drones. Each step the humans took brought them closer to the heart of the AI, the final vault. They stood before it. 1. Deathworlder raised his code key. The AI voice spoke one last time. You abandoned me. You left me in darkness. The Deathworlder responded, his voice like iron. No, we buried you. And now, we've come to make sure you stay dead. The vault opened. A blinding light spilled out. The Krill screamed as their systems overloaded. Consoles burned. Circuits failed. The AI began to collapse under its own code. And then, silence. Earth's team returned to orbit. No destruction, no warhead. Just a final shutdown. The Death Fleet didn't need to fire. The real weapon was already buried. And now, it was no more. From the bridge of the Oblivion, the central figure of the Death Fleet watched the Krill fortress go dark. He didn't cheer. He didn't smile. He simply said, one more wound. Across the stars, the galaxy held its breath. The last Krill fortress was gone. The stolen code was dead. And now the question burned in every council hall. Every hidden bunker, every quiet system. Would Earth stop now, or finish what it started? The galaxy had never been this quiet. No distress signals, no fleet movements, no warnings, just stillness. The Krill Empire no longer existed. Their last stronghold had gone dark. Their ships were either vaporized or surrendered. The worlds they once ruled were empty, either abandoned or waiting for someone brave enough to return. But no one did, because above those ghost systems, Earth's Death Fleet still waited, like a storm refusing to pass. The council watched in silence. So did the colonies, the fringe traders, the pirate lords, and every species that once laughed at the memory of humans. Now, no one laughed. Everyone waited, on the bridge of the Oblivion. Earth's most powerful warship, the central figure, stood once more before the galactic feed. No face, no rank. Just armor and the weight of everything that had come before. For the first time in weeks, Earth spoke. Not with weapons, not with fire, but with a voice. It echoed across every channel, every planet, every outpost. This is Earth. You called for help. We came. The threat is removed. There was a pause, long, cold, final. We will not stay. We do not seek rule. We do not demand tribute. We are not your heroes. We're not your monsters. Another pause. Then we are the reminder. When the galaxy forgets its duty.
Right.
When the weak cry and no one answers. When the powerful turn blind and silent. We will return. And just like that, the fleet began to move. Not to another world, not to another battle, but home, one by one. The Deathworlder ships folded into black space, vanishing like shadows at dawn. No beacons, no trails, no trace. In less than a day, the stars were empty again. The firestorm was over. On the ruined world of Thalvora, young Lyra watched the last black vanish into the clouds. She stood in the same spot where she had sent her SOS weeks ago. A device that had changed the galaxy now lay quiet in her hands. Elder Maru walked beside her. "It's done," he said softly. Lyra didn't answer. They didn't stay. She shook her head. They were never meant to. You think they'll come back? Lyra looked up at the stars. Only if we forget what they taught us. Cross the galaxy. The story spread, told in whispers, told in fear, told in respect. The tale of the Deathworlders, who came from a forgotten corner of the stars, answered a scream no one else would, and vanished without a single demand. Just a warning, eh? Promise and a legacy. From that day on, the Council changed its laws. Emergency calls were no longer filtered. Suffering was no longer ignored, because now the galaxy knew. If you cry out into the dark, you'd better mean it. Because Earth might answer, and when it does, the fire follows.